What up YouTube? Crash Wilcox, and coming back with another build video for you guys. This time we're finally doing it, 10th gen Intel. So this build is going to be centered around the 10th gen Intel, and then as the title suggests, the ASUS TUF Gaming sort of series of components. So I like trying to do these theme builds if possible. You know, it's not always possible to kind of build around an entire theme. We recently did one kind of focused around Be Quiet, and I'll have that linked up here and in the description. You can go check that out. But this time we're going to be focused on the TUF Gaming series. So that's why we already kind of got these parts laid out up here. I'm trying to build some consistency as far as how I make these videos. I don't have a script and this isn't a full-time job, so largely I just wing it, and I don't know how that works out. But I'm going to try to keep it somewhat standard. But for this one, since it's in the name, it's TUF Gaming, I don't feel like there's much surprise in what kind of parts we're using, so that's why you already see these up here. So the way we're going to do this is just kind of walk through the parts like we normally do, kind of give you my take on why I decided on the parts that I decided, and just kind of give you my take on, you know, general PC building, whatever happens to be, whatever pops into my brain. Like I said, I don't have a script, probably should, but I don't. And then we will get into the unboxing of the parts. We'll go through some benchmarking, and then we'll come back with the full sort of completed build. And if you want to see step-by-step of the entire build process, that'll be on my Patreon page. Please consider going and contributing. It's just $2 a month. It helps me out greatly, and you'll get the full build guides for these, like the step-by-step, you know, long build guides. But then also every week I throw up pre-built considerations, used part considerations, just general good deals on computer components. Well, those will be up there. So that'll be in addition to the monthly YouTube video for, like, you know, pre-built used parts that I'm now starting to do every month. I do weekly updates on the Patreon page. So $2 a month, man, it's the price of less than the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So certainly appreciate that. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'd certainly appreciate it. And leave me some comments if you have any to offer up. I may not respond to all of them, but I certainly read them all and I appreciate them all. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. So as we talked about, we're focused on the TUF Gaming series right now, and that's going to be sort of centered around here on this ASUS TUF Gaming case. This thing is a behemoth. I think it's actually labeled as like a mid-tower case, but it's on the large side of mid-tower. So it's really nice looking. It also comes with 4 fans included, which is pretty sweet. You don't even need to spend extra money on fans. I believe it has 320 millimeter fans in the front, and then it looks like a 140 millimeter fan in the back. I'll have a slide kind of running through here. If any of what I just said is incorrect, reference the slide, and that's correct. But very big case, should have plenty of space for building in. And this is an idea, or not an idea, but a thought for anybody that's watching this that may be a new PC builder, or you're just thinking about getting into PC building. You know, there's a lot of cool cases out there. I'm a big fan personally of small form factor, but what I would recommend if you are a new PC builder, consider something like this TUF Gaming. Maybe not this expensive, but get a full tower case or a large mid-tower case, because if you're new to building, cable management is a pain, and having a case this big to sort of figure everything out, once you can build comfortably and confidently in a case this big, it's a lot easier to tailor that down to a small form factor build like the Node 202. You can check out on the link up here. I built in a Node 202, really small form factor. But the principles you learn, you can sort of transfer. But if you start out building in something like a Node 202, you're really going to have a hard time making that work and really finding it enjoyable. And this should be an enjoyable process. I mean, that's why we spend the money. That's why we don't necessarily go and buy a pre-built because we enjoy the process. So if you're new to it, check out a case like this or something in that larger full tower size. Get comfortable building in it, getting the cable management down, putting the parts in, and then if you want to tailor that down later, it's a lot easier than trying to do it the other way. But then if you're just the kind of person that likes big cases, which is cool, you know, I'm not opposed to them. I've had tons of big cases, and this one looks really nice, really well built, tons of fans. It also comes with vertical GPU mounts or mounting capability. You would have to get the riser extension, but it does come with the slots already in it. So if you wanted to mount your GPU vertically, you have that option. So nice case, should be super easy to build in. And I believe the 3 fans in the front are RGB. So that's a nice touch there. And then to go with that, normally I would go with the CPU first, but we'll get into that here in a second. We are going to be building this around, like I said, the TUF Gaming series. And 10th gen Intel requires the new Z490 motherboard. So with that, we decided to go with the Z490 TUF Gaming. This is the Wi-Fi version. So the TUF Gaming series has actually been really one of the better value motherboards. Like I don't know if I want to say value, but one of the best sort of mid-range, like lower mid-range motherboards as far as thermals, just what it provides, you know, as far as the I/O, Wi-Fi, it's got M.2. It's just a really good value in that mid-range if you're looking for something that can support everything from, you know, a low end to a high end, you know, maybe an i9 or, you know, sort of CPU moving forward. You don't want to get something that's terribly low end and the thermals are bad. You know, it doesn't come with a lot of I/O because you're not going to be necessarily building, in my mind, a $2,000, you know, computer and having a $120 motherboard with limited USB, you know, capabilities, no like BIOS flashback, none of that stuff. So really the ASUS TUF Gaming boards, you know, starting with the X570 when that released, the 390, and then now obviously the 490 are just really good boards in my opinion if you're in that mid-range. You know, looks are subjective, but I believe it has 2 or 3, yeah, 2 M.2 slots on it. Like I said, Wi-Fi, plenty of USB connections in the back. It supports up to 4600 megahertz RAM, 2.5 gig LAN, I believe, so which is standard now on all the Z490, but just a good value motherboard. Obviously, it's going to fit with the TUF Gaming. That's the whole reason we bought it. But even if you're not going just TUF Gaming, this is a good board to look at if you're moving into the 10th gen Intel. And then with that, we are going to be pairing that here with the TUF Gaming RX 5700 XT. So when the TUF Gaming 5700 XT first came out, I will have a video linked to, I'll try to link both videos to the original TUF Gaming review done by Hardware Unboxed, I believe. And it was not good. Thermals were terrible, but ASUS in respectable fashion took that criticism and revamped the 5700 XT and has come out with the X3 variant of the 5700 XT, and that's what this is. Much improved thermals. This is the card that they should have designed originally, so this is not the neglected first take at the 5700 XT from the TUF Gaming series. This is the revamped version, and 5700 XT is a great graphics card. Now it doesn't have the ray tracing support, but that's not really a big consideration. Like I talked about in my last video, unless you play Minecraft. If you play Minecraft, get it, then it's worth it. But otherwise, this is a great graphics card. It's in that 2070 to 2080, depending on what you play, type of performance. So it should work really well in this. If you're looking towards gaming, this is going to be a great value pick. You know, the 27 or the 2070s, 2080s, and those sorts of cards are still pretty expensive, but you can get this for right around 400 bucks, and that's great price to performance in my opinion. So that's the TUF Gaming stuff. Getting that out of the way now. So as I normally do, talking about building computers, I always recommend you put the majority of your money in the best CPU you can get, because I think that's the backbone of any computer. So for this build, we went with the i7 10700K. So not the most premier CPU that you can get in the 10th gen lineup, but certainly a very respectable CPU. Essentially, it's the refresh of the 9900K. And, you know, in watching a lot of the reviews about the 10th gen lineup, I find it odd when people talk about the 10700K, they kind of make it out to be a CPU without a home. Like, it doesn't really fit, because if you really want, you know, budget gaming, 10600K, and then if you really want the best of the best, 10900K. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. To me, the 10900K seems to be a CPU without a home. You know, because if you're going with the 10700K, for example, gaming is probably very important to you, because if you just wanted cores for, you know, high core count and high thread count applications, you're not going Intel, because AMD has you beat in that respect. And if you're just going with gaming performance, then again, the 10 core, there's no real home for that. You don't need 10 cores for any gaming application. So to me, the 10700K, if you want to get the best gaming performance, but you still want to be able to handle, you know, decent high threaded workloads, you know, content creation stuff, to me, this is a nice sweet spot. It's roughly $410 right now, which again, it's a 9900K refresh. They knocked $100 and some off of it. To me, I think it's a good value. I think it's a worthwhile part. I mean, an 8-core 16-thread CPU is still going to be good for years to come. Whether you're gaming, whether you're content creation, I mean, that's not going to be obsolete for a long time. So I think it's good. It comes with the Turbo Boost. Let me see what Turbo Boost 3.0 technology. So it boosts up to 5.1 gigahertz, 3.8 gigahertz base frequency. You know, and what's surprising is when they were getting ready to launch all these CPUs, you know, the big fear was they were running so hot. You know, that was one of the main concerns people had, you know, as Intel keeps pushing this 14 nanometer technology. But then when they actually release the reviews, they don't run that hot. So Intel, you know, they're not out of tricks yet. You know, they're not washed up and done yet. So I think it's a good CPU. Gaming wise, it's going to be fantastic. Fantastic. Content creation wise, it's going to be fantastic. And if you can save yourself a little bit of money in the process, not a bad way to go, in my opinion. So that's that. To keep this beast cool, because while it isn't as hot running as we thought it was, it still isn't cool running either. So we're going with the Dark Rock Pro 4, and not much to say about this that hasn't already been said. It's a wonderful air cooler. You know, this should be no issue cooling the 10700K. Looks are subjective, but Be Quiet makes wonderful products. They're quiet, they work effectively, and yeah, not much to say about it. Great cooler, good choice, should look good in this. No RGB, but that's all right. Get the less sexy out of the way. Power supply. I talked about this in my last video. Power supplies are incredibly difficult to come by right now. You know, they're not, well, they're mostly sold out. I don't know why power supplies have become in short supply, but to find anything with decent wattage, you know, you can find all the 450 watt power supplies you want that are non-modular. But to find something that is semi-modular, fully modular with decent wattage is pretty tricky. So I actually had to go to the Cooler Master website and order this. It's really all they had in stock. So I'm not concerned about wattage. 650 watts is fine. It shouldn't be an issue here. I know some people get nervous when you start getting, you know, lower in wattage, but it's going to run fine. Not going to be an issue there. It is semi-modular, but Cooler Master makes great power supplies, and the cables should make it look clean inside of there. So not a concern. Good power supply. Not much to say about that. For storage, for this, we are going with 2 NVMe drives. So both XPG, and we decided to go with, for the boot drive, the SX8100, and then for the sort of backup game drive, whatever else, the GameX S5. Both good NVMe drives. Largely, I don't think user experience, you would ever notice a difference between either of these, but this is a technically faster rated SSD. I think it has read speeds up to 3,500 megabytes, write 3,000, whereas this is 2,100 megabytes read, 1,500 write. So technically this is a faster boot drive, which is why we're using it for the, or technically this is a faster SSD. So that's why we're using it for the boot. But again, I don't think you would notice a difference if you swap them around. So yeah, but that's why we're gonna do what we're gonna do. So there's the SSDs. I've talked about this before. I recommend, if you are able to get a SSD, let's see where I can put these and they don't fall over. Oh. I recommend getting an NVMe drive. Not only does it help with cable management because they plug right into the motherboard, but you know, they are quicker and they aren't terribly expensive. You know, you can find good 500 gig M.2s, you know, Crucial P1s or Intel 660Ps for, you know, $65, $70 right now. The prices have gone up, but they're not so dramatic, and you don't need to get something this big. I mean, even if all you can get is a 256 gig boot drive, I recommend it because it's hard to change your OS, and not a lot of people like doing that. So as long as you get your operating system on an NVMe drive, you know, you can upgrade everything else around it, and that's always going to remain fast. You know, your Windows and that sort of thing is always going to run really well, no matter what you upgrade around it. So I would say if you're building a computer, try to find a way to squeeze an M.2 into your system. So that's what we went with for storage. Plenty of storage, get a lot of games on there. And then the last thing for this build, we're going with the RAM. And for that, we are going with, where did I put this? Patriot Viper, 16 gigs of 4133 megahertz. So very fast RAM. Patriot has been on like a selling spree of reasonably priced, very fast RAM. I believe this is CL19. It's hard to get anything really less than CL19 when you start getting up into the 4,000 megahertz range. But that's not a big deal. I mean, this is going to be incredibly quick RAM. It's going to make all your applications and, you know, software and games run very quick, very smooth. 16 gigs is about, in my opinion, the minimum of what you should get for a build. Typically, you know, I try to get 32 gigs in a build just as a little bit of future proofing. But depending on what your budget is, you know, if you can grab 16 to start, and then if you find that that becomes a limitation, you know, maybe you're moving away from just gaming and streaming, and maybe you started recording and video editing now, and you may need that extra. Well, you can always buy that later. You know, just try to match up your RAM. You can grab a couple extra sticks and throw that in there, and it should work just fine. But I would not recommend, especially if you're trying to get into like some AAA gaming, getting anything less than 16 gigs. And obviously 4133 on the speed is not necessary either. You can certainly get away with a lot less than that, 3200, 3000 megahertz even. Save yourself some money if your budget's tight. That'll work just fine. But if you can swing it, go for it. It'll be nice to have. So that's the full build. So what we're gonna do next is just start the unboxing process, and then we'll run through some of these benchmarks, starting with like the synthetic stuff, the Cinebench and those sorts of things. Then we'll get into a few games, and then come back with the actual full build. And then remember, if you do want to see the full build guide, or if you just want to support me because you're a kind, generous person, please go to Patreon. I would certainly appreciate it. And that's all I got to say. Let's get to these unboxings.